Alright guys, let's come back to this. Sorry, real quick, this is going to be just me basically breadboarding or putting together the internal components of a PC. Here you can see we're looking at our various components, including an i3-2100, some various important things we're going to need, our RAM, and our thermal paste, and of course, our main board. I do want to apologize for the delay. Haven't been feeling super great, so if I sound a little crusty in the voice, I'm blaming seasonal allergies once again. So, here we have a couple quick shots of the main board. I did my best to edit out any over existence of hands in the way, and that is a DQ67SW main board from Intel. Quick little shot here showing how the CPU should be orientated. There is an arrow marking the proper orientation, and that will be an arrow on the CPU as well as the main board, the motherboard itself. Now for the cringy part. How do we get this in here? Oh dear. There's kind of one more shot of that. This particular motherboard, there is one retaining lever that needs to be lifted up. Then you can lift away the top of the retention bracket, if you will. There's probably a more specific name. I don't recall what it is at this moment. Placing, orientation, arrow to arrow, those 2 points together. I'm going to drop that retaining bracket back down, sliding forward. Yeah, so many hands in the way, sorry. And then locking it into place. You want to use your proper points. And now here's my favorite part. You take this little black cover and chuck it off to the side, because that won't be needed. That's mainly there to protect the pins on the motherboard from getting bent during storage or shipping. Alright. From here, one of the next components we're going to need to do is we're going to place our RAM next. So you can see there's a notch in that RAM. Much like the CPU, it has a proper orientation. Will only go in one way. And in this particular build, based on where we are sitting, that is going to be with the decals facing towards the far side of the motherboard, which would be towards the front of the case. We're going to want to make sure to take those retaining clips down, so that way we can slide it into place, pressing down firmly on both sides. I use a little bit of a rocking motion here to get that into place. And of course, repeat with the second stick. A little bit of struggle action there, getting it out of the package. Here we go. You see decals facing away from us in this particular instance. Sliding back in. Slight rocking motion, click, click. Nice and satisfying. And it drops into place. Here we have what is going to be the lower bracket, mounting bracket that will hold in the CPU cooler. Did a little bit cut action because it required more hands and it got in the way of the shot, so I do apologize for that. Applying some thermal paste evenly. Typically you can use a spatula. Some people will use the rice method where they just apply a rice-sized glob to the center of the CPU die and then place the component. I tried to spread it out a little bit as best I could with the nozzle of the CPU thermal paste tube. Not the best method for sure, but it works in a pinch. Now we have this heatsink that's going to be gone. It does have 4 mounting fasteners in each 4 corners. You're going to want to alternate corners. Here we speed up to I think if I recall correctly, that's 300 times speed, just so that way you guys don't have to fall asleep watching me attempt to screw fasteners to the main board. Oh, here we go. Super speedy. There are other CPU coolers that would be perfectly applicable for this application. This one just happened to be the one that was on hand at the moment. Look at that speed. Wow. Such precision. Going back over just to double check, make sure everything's tightened, because we do want that evenly attached to the mobile. Oh, don't forget, with any proper cooler, you're going to want to make sure it's plugged into the main board in the proper location. Typically that's marked with like a mark on the screen print that says something to the tune of like CPU fan. I did route the wiring a little bit tighter to the cooler, just so that way you don't have extra wires just hanging out all over the place. Be very careful not to bend your CPU pin headers, and ignore my cringy attempt at a thumbs up. Speaking of thumbs up, if you found any of this interesting or helpful, please feel free to like it, comment, and subscribe. Here I'm just quickly looking over the front panel I/O, because that is where you're going to, once this is installed into a case, you're going to want to hook up the appropriate connectors from your case. First boot, everything looks fine. It's just simply stating that that's not the original CPU that was in it prior.
We did it, we're in. Board works just fine. i3-2100 CPU. And things are looking good. Now
Thanks
to
again.
get some sort of memory on here. And go from there.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Bye.